I fucking hate people so much. I hate them so much.
Hey, welcome back to Fantastic Fest. We are covering day 2, where they premiered Vampiro, or was it? Nail in the Coffin, the documentary about Vampiro. It's one of those things.
Fall and Rise of Vampiro. Get the full title right.
Show off. It's like you haven't been drinking today or something.
Today is my water day.
We all make bad decisions at Fantastic Fest. Thankfully, this was not one of those movies that I think was a bad decision. It's about, as I said, Vampiro, famous luchador wrestler, and I also did some wrestling in America, but he's from Canada, and basically said, I want to be a wrestler, and there's no way to make money here, but I can have a gimmick in Mexico. Let's go to Mexico. And honestly, he's one of the most famous Mexican wrestlers, even though he's not Mexican.
Yep. And I, who am not a wrestling fan at all, had no idea who he was. I was just like, oh, it's a Canadian guy in Mexico wrestling. Cool. Let's watch that. And I loved it. Oh my God. Basically, I'll get into it. The movie follows him. It starts now and talks very much through his entire life as he got into what is a very exploitative industry, apparently, no matter what country you live in, and rose to prominence as one of the biggest wrestlers in Mexico, wrestled a bit in America, through his marriage, having children, as well as what he's doing now, where he has now become more of a producer and a director and kind of a technical director and creative consultant.
Yeah.
He does it all now. He basically does everything.
And the thing is, though, the biggest crux of the story is basically just his love for his daughter and also for wrestling. I mean, honestly, his kid is, she's 17, 18 by the time this movie is set and, the main part of the documentary. And he's moved her to Canada from Mexico for the last few years. And basically just how much he struggles to still be Vampiro, and doing this, doing wrestling while also really caring about his daughter and basically trying to keep her the focus of his life, while also basically breaking himself in half because he doesn't say no to any wrestling thing. And it's honestly, they call it the fall and rise, but it's really a tragic story.
Yeah, it plays out like The Wrestler. Darren Aronofsky's The Wrestler, except he actually has a good to great relationship with his daughter. And as a dad, which Chris always makes fun of me when I talk about this, but my Papa Bear came in full swing, and when it got into his relationship with her and then her relationship with him, I was just bawling my eyes out. And there's parts towards the end of the movie, or middle of the movie too, where you've established that this is destroying his body and he won't stop. And every time he got into the ring, I'd be like, no, just don't do it. Think of your daughter.
Well, and again, part of that same tragic story is he keeps saying, this is that thing that I'm good at. I don't have anything else I'm good at. But it's like, no, you are actually a really fantastic producer. You seem to understand the blocking and the storytelling of wrestling. There's a way you could keep this as a career, but you keep wanting to be the color commentary guy, the guy who basically gets drawn into the fight for the interesting stuff. The little bit I know about wrestling is there's always going to be the color commentary guy. Whoever's out there right next to the arena is supposed to be part of the story.
Is he Vince McMahon? Is he like the wholesome Vince McMahon of Mexican wrestling?
He's kind of like Vince McMahon in a lot of this, which is kind of sad. But honestly, though, I love this movie. The more I think about it every time, it's just no, the story is so well told. He's he's one of those guys who's a bit curmudgeonly. But if you've been in the social eye so much, there's a great part where they have great video of him with his daughter when she's younger, and he's basically I don't want to be a dickhead to my fans, but I also. It's my time with my daughter. You don't fuck with that. And he's doing that while he's signing an autograph for a little Mexican child that clearly doesn't understand. He's saying, I fucking hate this, and giving it to them.
Dude, I was really in the scenes going I hope they don't understand English, because he's I fucking hate these people here. But honestly, I would recommend this documentary to almost everyone. If you love wrestling, you're gonna actually get why he's important, and it's going to mean a lot to you. And even if you don't like wrestling like me, it's still a wonderful, moving story. See it.
Exactly. Definitely see this one. There's a lot of great documentaries that are coming out of Fantastic Fest, and this might be my favorite still.
This is one of my top picks from the whole festival so far.
Yeah.
I will get home to tell my daughter that I love her one last time.
Okay, Well, we're here to talk about Homewrecker, which I saw last night. I don't know. There's been a lot of alcohol involved with this.
It was last night, yeah.
Which I thought was it had a lot of good parts to it. It is about a woman who makes the ultimate mistake of going to a second location with a stranger, which should have been the title of the movie, I feel like. And the stranger, unfortunately, ends up being kind of crazy, cuckoo, banana pants.
Yeah, to steal how the person that introed it described it as a Lifetime movie. Starts out as a Lifetime movie, ends like a Lifetime movie on crack.
Yeah, okay, that's
which
fair.
is an apt way. It's got a really great performance of a crazy person from Precious Chong, who I've never heard before. It's an older blonde lady. I don't think she ever blinks throughout the entire movie. She spends the entire movie looking directly at the person.
Yeah,
just
okay. Yeah, she does a great job of being creepy. Yeah.
And then the victim, Alex Esso, who you can see in another indie movie that played a few years ago that not a ton of people have seen, but it's called Starry Eyes. You should definitely check that out if you've seen it.
Oh,
you were wondering where
I
you
know her
recognize
from.
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the cool thing, the movie is really intimate and small. It all takes place in, I think, 2 locations total, with 90% of it in one house, and there's a cast of, I think, 3. And I think the way you summed it up is great. It begins as an awkward Lifetime moment of you going, don't do that, and then it goes crazy.
Yeah.
And then it goes delightfully crazy.
When a stranger comes up to you and says, "Hey, they want to be friends in the coffee shop," just don't be friends with them.
Or really, just don't go to a second location with a stranger.
Yeah.
Just don't. It's a bad idea.
I told you, I'm fun.
That's good.
Hey, we're here to talk about the death of Dick Long. What a title. What a title, ladies and gentlemen. Well, when we read the description, did anybody else think, oh crap, it's like the Greasy Strangler, isn't it?
I didn't, because if I would have thought that, I definitely would not have seen it.
Yeah, I
'cause
did
fucking
not.
hate that movie.
Yeah.
I honestly can't get past the fact that I made it until I was in the theater without realizing it's the death of Dick Long and not the death of Long Dick.
Oh, okay. So we know where your head was at. But they're, like, it sold it as saying kind of like, oh, it's a lot of crudity. And surprisingly, there was considerably less of that than I imagined. What you actually have is kind of a southern boiled Fargo-lite.
Yeah, it's from like one half of the tandem that directed Swiss Army Man. So I was like, here with that title, my mind just went to all different kinds of places to where it could be, and I was really surprised at how grounded in reality this is.
Yeah, and very character driven
Yeah.
and performance driven, which really surprised me. We've got a group of 3, they're rednecks, but they're not like, they're not like super racist outside of the fact that one of them does indeed have a Confederate flag hanging up inside his garage. But it's never addressed. It's never overt in the film. In fact, there's a lot of different people of color who are in it, and it's never remarked upon or thought of as any
They're
different.
not like Deliverance rednecks, but they're kind of like 90s. They're stuck in the 90s, really. One guy has a ringtone of Disturbed, Down with the Sickness, which I imagine so many people in that region of Alabama have. As
Isn't
their
that the
ringtone.
standard ringtone for everyone? I'm down with the sickness. No, they're they're obviously been friends forever. They're in a crappy cover band of like 80s and 90s songs. Like they say, classic rock, which can mean a lot of things to a younger generation that I don't approve of. But anyway, we see that something happens in between. Woo, let's get weird, which means take drugs and party. And one of the guys, Richard Long, is really injured and bleeding out, and they're trying to get him to the hospital, but they're also like, we can't let him see us. So they drive him up and they carry him and just drop him off in front of the hospital.
Like you do.
So it turns out guy dies. And they're all like, because they don't know. They don't want to pretend like they have any idea what happened. And there's a whole series of things that are going on with some of the other characters with 2 really wildly incompetent police officers. Just like it looked like they were chasing the cop from the 2nd season of Fargo, but instead of being actually really competent, they were as incompetent as everybody treated them. Yeah. And lots of the main guy who is the good looking of the 2 friends, basically his wife and his relationship with her and his daughter. There's a lot of them scrambling to try and cover their bases, but they're not bright. So it's like doing exactly the wrong thing over and over again. But like I said, once again, the only person dumber than the main characters in this movie are the cops.
Yeah.
So
I don't know, they're pretty dumb.
and the reigning mystery is, so what the hell did this guy die from? And like, what killed him? Because clearly they didn't want him to die. So how did he die? And why was it so bad they would want to cover it up? And that's the trick that I felt like is the biggest falling, is that the movie reveals what that actually is too soon. Like right at the start of the third act, they tell you what it actually is. I was like, that felt like maybe we should have waited a bit longer.
I did not have that issue, actually. So, first of all, this movie is super awkward. Watching them bungle their way through trying to cover up the crime is really hard if you have an issue with cringe comedy, because it's kind of funny, but it's really just tense and dramatic too. Yeah. But once he goes in and you do find out what happened, it really becomes a different kind of movie. It wraps in the family members, especially the wife of the main character, Ezekiel, and becomes a lot more about how keeping secrets in that kind of an intimate relationship can do a lot of damage. And when the third act happened, my character of choice immediately became the wife, and like it was her story that I ended up being interested in the most. And
she gives one of the strongest performances in the film.
She does.
I'm with you. I'm kind of why I don't think that reveal was really too soon, because that it does shift its focus on to the not just the wife, but also the women in the story.
It does, but I felt like it turned into a very different type of movie for the audience, where suddenly before we're kind of like, it's almost like a murder mystery where you're like solving it, and then the movie solves it, and the rest of it is just about guilt.
It is a very strange tonal shift, because like what the reason and what happens is funny, but the movie doesn't play it as funny, and so it's like, should we be laughing?
Well, yeah.
I actually respect the way it does it though, because it takes what is ultimately inherently an absurd situation and goes, okay, now what if you were actually in this? And what would you do? And how would you react? And you're trying to cover it up. And then what impact does this have on the rest of your life as you go forward?
So you had no problem identifying with possibly being in this scenario. You're like, sure, that used to happen all the time where I grew up.
God damn it, sure.
Now I'm never going to be able to erase that image out of my head. Holy crap. You guys don't know what I'm talking about, but you will.
Yeah. But no, like it was surprisingly honest, to a point that like afterwards I texted my wife and was like,
it's exactly like that.
I was like, okay, I promise I don't have any secrets, but oh my god, I'm never keeping any from you.
And now she's at home going like, what does that mean?
I had to explain it to her this morning, and she just went,
I think overall it's a pretty decent film. I think it's really well acted. It's got a smart script. I just thought it didn't quite know 100% what it wanted to be, and it was also resonant of so many other things that I kept thinking of other things.
It is super well acted. I want to go back and look at interviews and see how the guy who played Earl, his name is Earl obviously, of how he is in real life, because his mannerism throughout the whole that dude is fantastic.
It is not like that at all.
Yeah, he's totally.
They did a brief Q&A. He doesn't have the accent. He doesn't have the mannerisms. It's one of those things where like I'm not saying
I went to Juilliard.
I'm not saying like, yeah, this is an award-winning performance, but it was like, oh my god, that was so authentically real and trashy and just douchey, and I don't want to applaud you, but wow.
Yeah, I don't know if Fantastic Fest gives out awards for like an individual performance, but that might be my favorite one.
Yeah,
and I hate that type of person.
Yeah. But you bought it.
And we all know that type of person.
Did we?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, okay, fair. I grew up with a lot of them. I don't know them anymore. But I think we all can say we dug it, but with reservations.
Yeah.
Secret anymore.
Are you joking?